Meteorological Development Lab. Welcome to our May edition of the Virtual Laboratory Forum. Today we're going to hear from Matt Davis, who is the IT officer up in WFO La Crosse, Wisconsin, National Weather Service. He's going to talk about the Iris project at 5 years, how a grassroots rapid prototyping project has grown to support NWS operational needs. I checked the VLab forum archive and saw that the third time that we did one of these back in 2009 was a presentation on Iris. So it's about 5 years since we first checked in with the Iris project, and things have grown a lot. Leadership has changed, as well as some of the team membership. Matt is the current lead of the project, but he wasn't the first. So it's going to be very interesting to see and hear from Matt how things have progressed and hear about some of the upcoming plans. I remind everybody that the format of this seminar is 30 minutes, followed by a Q&A session. We ask folks to sort of hold off their questions until the Q&A, unless it's a real important clarification question. And also that the session is recorded, and the file recording will be uploaded to the VLab forum website shortly after today's session is over. So without further ado, Matt, you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, that's kind of a blast from the past. I forgot we had done that back in 2009, but that was one of our first presentations on Iris, and as you said, it's grown quite a bit. Thanks for inviting me to speak about it. A few introductory slides will start out, and then I plan to go through a demonstration of the current web interface, and then, as Steve said, take any questions after that. So where did Iris come from? Well, really back as far as 2006 and 2007, there are a number of developers working in field offices and regional headquarters who were working on projects that involved logging of information, such as a station log, storing information on contacts, storing information on weather events that occurred. And all of these projects were very separate, but they had related needs. So during that period of about 2008 to 2010, we started to talk amongst ourselves and figured out that what we needed was a consistent framework to store information, to georeference it, and to use it in new ways that we hadn't been able to before in the National Weather Service. At that point, we had lots of methods of dealing with meteorological information, but some of that non-meteorological information, like our contact databases, impacts that weather would have on different users, and our communications data, it wasn't as well developed at that point. One interesting note about the Iris team is it's always been virtual. We have only met face-to-face as an entire group once. I believe that was back in, I want to say 2010 in Salt Lake City. But other than that, we've been working virtually now for 5 years as a team. And just recently, we have added John Crockett there at MDL as a member of the team, and so we now encompass field offices, regional headquarters, and national headquarters. So what can Iris do right now? Well, we can manage all the contacts for an office, and that includes Weather Service specific data, such as, for instance, like a co-op ID or a spotter ID, what kind of equipment a certain contact may have. We can do all kinds of things with observations. In an area of concern, we allow forecasters to set criteria alert levels on all types of observation elements, and we can take an observation and directly create a local storm report text product from that. In addition to the text product, we can create a variety of other formats, none of which are being used yet, but we can have kind of a single source of dissemination of these weather events in any format desired. We can also generate storm reports or event reports by directly interfacing with a map. We have a heads-up display that a number of offices use for situational awareness, which is kind of a mashup of reports and warnings and observations and contacts all on a map, driven by the forecaster, whatever the event is. They kind of decide what mashup they want on that. Iris is also the framework that is driving INWS in Western region. For those who are not familiar with it, INWS allows external users, like emergency managers, to subscribe for alerts based on hazardous event products that we send out. And these events are graphically generated on a map and a URL sent to the user's cell phone, and they're able to see immediately what events occurring. Iris is also the driver for the wireless emergency alerts through FEMA, and that began, I believe, a couple years ago. And that project, as well as INWS, are under the Iris framework code base, and so they're also part of our repository on the virtual lab. And about for the past year or so, we've been putting our efforts fully into what's called impact management capabilities. That is defining an area and a type of impact that weather may have on a core partner, and being able to alert forecasters and eventually core partners themselves when their defined impact criteria are exceeded. So a lot of work going on in that area right now. This is just a graphic kind of showing the different projects that are related to Iris. There's a prototype impact catalog out in Western region that's being run from the Iris framework. As I said before, INWS, the emergency alerts. Iris is providing information for NIDS, and I don't have full details on it, but I believe it's the hazard information that shows up on the WWA maps. And then at the bottom is the Iris web interface. One of the questions that our team gets a lot is, what is Iris? I thought it was a blank. Well, it's really a lot of things, but at its core, Iris is a post-GIS enabled Postgres database that allows us to georeference all the data that we store. Completely wrapped around that database is the Iris framework. And the Iris framework is written in Java, and it provides methods for storing and retrieving the database information via web services. Out beyond the edges of the framework, there are a number of clients that use that framework and its web services to actually do something with the information, like the Iris web interface, INWS, Ridge2, and others. About 2.5 years ago, I want to say, we became formally part of the virtual lab, and that's really accelerated our development since then. We don't do a lot on the outside the Redmine side of it, but we have quite a powerful site built on Redmine where we're managing our tickets. In fact, we have interfaced the Iris web application directly into that with a button, so that if the user's using the application and something goes awry, they click the button, it opens the ticket directly in our Redmine. One of the members of our team is actually assigned to review new tickets and validate that, you know, as far as possible what's going on there, and refer them to any of the other developers that can take care of it based on priorities. So that's a really powerful tool. Another tool that we use a lot is Jenkins. Whenever we do a commit on our framework code, Jenkins will see that the repository has changed, and it will automatically build our code into installable binaries, which is really cool. The other thing that it does is Jenkins generates our Java docs, which is the documentation that that we use that shows all of the methods of the framework that are available for clients. So that's another powerful part of it. We also have we also make quite a bit of use of the wiki portion of Redmine for information for other developers. For instance, how do you create a new class in the Iris framework? Some of this stuff can be a little bit cryptic, and so having a wiki as a way to record it is a very good method to use. So without further ado, I believe we'll go ahead and take a look at Iris and give you a little demonstration. So the portion of Iris that our team works on primarily is the Iris web interface. And so that's what I'll be demonstrating here today. I'm actually going to start out with our usage statistics page. Whenever anyone accesses Iris or sends a product from Iris, we record it in the database. And so if we take a look at this, it records for each site the total number of accesses and which of the perspectives they've accessed. And these statistics here go back about 3 months now. But you can see Iris is being widely used in the National Weather Service. And if I look down to the very bottom of the page, 111 WFOs or CWSUs or RFCs have accessed Iris here in the past 3 months. We've sent a little over 2,100 products, almost 1,500 LSRs and 755 PNSs. And then the rest of those statistics at the bottom are how often each of our major perspectives are being used. And you can see that Mesonet Monitor is one of the heavy hitters there, as is the event tools and data collection. Contact management is increasing all the time, and I'll get into that a little bit as well. And then we don't have the experimental tools yet on our production side, but we'll take a quick glance at that as well, some of our early work at impact management. So I just wanted to present those statistics. And here we are on my development website for Iris. Each developer has their own copy of the source code. And we work by checking changes out of the repository and checking changes in. It works very well. This perspective is kind of the main one that you get into with Iris. Like if you just come in without directing it anywhere else, you'll come here. This gives you a listing of every observation from every data type that we can find within an area of responsibility for an office. So in this case, the area of responsibility is the La Crosse office. We have 116 unique reporting sites this hour, and we record all of this information in the database. We're bringing in a lot of Mesonets from Natus. We bring in METAR data, as well as Chef from the SVN. There's a number of different ways we can look at this data. This is the current observations that are just within the last hour. But we have all of these different views of the data. For instance, if we want to look at the highest winds in the past 12 hours, we can get that data from the database. And once it displays, it'll show like the wind speeds in the 30s, if they're a gust or sustained. But another kind of neat thing we can do with that is, based on those observations, we can create a public information statement. And the media and other partners like having this information available, and doing it this way minimizes the amount of hand editing required. I'll go through and just create a values only. We provide all these different ways to sort the data. And it gives you a public information statement of the highest wind speeds here in the past 12 hours, when they occurred, and the latitude, longitude. And since I'm on the development server here, I can go ahead and transmit because it doesn't actually go anywhere. And that would be the process for doing a quick summary of observational data. And there's quite a bit of other information in here as well. The next area that I want to show, and we're going to kind of move from simplicity towards more complexity as we go through these. Local storm report tools is a perspective that uses a map, and it provides all of these different types of ways to search for a location. We can search by contacts, latitude, longitude, but really the quickest way is that if you have a storm cell and somebody calls in, you can click your map and you can look at, it'll zoom in, and they might say, oh yeah, we're at the corner of Highway C and 108, and you can click it right there, and then you can create an LSR and say, well, and this is right when they're on the phone, well, what do you have? Well, we had let's see here, let's go with hail, and it was about 1 3/4 inches. So you can do that, and it will immediately create your LSR that you can send out. The effectiveness of this is that it's been shown time and again that real-time reports get people to take action and warnings. So making it as simple as possible enhances the quality of our warning services. That was one of our goals in here. So once again, I can simulate a transmission since it's not actually going anywhere. One of the real powerful things that we have in Iris is a way to use a lot of our contact information, and we have contacts that are all over our county warning area, as many sites do. And we can plot these different types of contacts on a map, and we get little markers that say whether it's an NWS employee or a co-op site, or just a spotter, which would be black. But, well, I'm not going to call our office, so we'll close this one. I'll choose a better one here. Say we want to talk to this co-op observer down here. We can just click on their marker and say, we saw a storm just come through your area, what's going on? And they may say, yep, we had some limbs down, they were about 6 inches, so I can directly from that interface go in here. It'll say that it's co-op observer, it'll put in their location, and then I can just change it to, they'll say in this case non-thunderstorm wind and like 65 miles an hour. And we can create the LSR directly from there. So that's some of the tools in this local storm report tools area. Situational awareness isn't real exciting today since we're under big Canadian high pressure, but it allows us to mash up different things. Like some of our river flood warnings are showing up. It'll show polygon warnings, and as they get close to expiration, it'll show how many minutes are left in there. We can display LSRs. You see a few icons down here. You can click on them and see what the storm report was and when it was. And then we have mesonet observations, kind of from that other area. We can also plot the information on this map. Some of them that are used a lot by the forecasters here. They like to use dew point, but we have a few that are kind of interesting, like the road temperatures from sensors. And then we have some other information as well in here, including like the ping precipitation types from NSSL. So that's the situational awareness perspective. And the important thing to remember is that all of this is tied together in the background. All of these things use common resources, and there are different ways to visualize the information that we need. Getting a little bit more complicated, we'll get into contact management. And let me turn off some of the stuff that we don't need on here. And in contact management, we are able to enter contacts or edit contacts. Again, this is our development site, so there's some stuff in here that's that we're just playing with. But our newest efforts in the past month have been to improve contact management and to prepare it for impact management, because impacts and contacts go hand in hand. When you get into this actual contact editor, you can see that you can choose between a contact being a person or an organization. They have a name, a title or position, what kind they are. We can put in addresses. We can you can click a map, and it will say, do you want to use this address as the actual address? We can set that. It will change the address in here. That's good for folks where you don't have real accurate information about locations. You can put in phone numbers and times that you can call them and whether or not you can text message them. Same for email information. This is under development right now. John Crockett at MBL is working on this perspective. This will say that a contact is one that will use impact management. That's what this is for. And then local information, a lot of that's stuff that's NWS specific. For instance, a co-op station ID, ham radio call sign, that kind of information. And so then we can enter this stuff and save the contact, delete it. We can go in here and delete contacts. It's pretty full-featured. We can generate, for instance, spotter information files that we can use in AWIPS directly from our contacts, and a number of other things here. We can search by, I want to know all the contacts that are in Adams County. It'll search them out for you, and that's a way to narrow it down. And then we have other things too, like we can print out labels. One that was a request that a WCM sent in to us is that, hey, it's great having them in here, but I need to print labels to send to people. Okay, so we put that in there. Getting a little bit more complex now, we move on to data collection. Data collection is interesting because what this allows us to do, and in any office that has contacts, is a lot of times after we have, let's say, a major like snowstorm, and we know that there's been a snow band across a couple of counties, a couple of folks here will jump on the phone, and we'll start going through here. Let's set this to heavy snow, and we'll make the calls that are within a county. For instance, we can go through Mitchell County, Iowa, and we can call each of these people, and we can say, to the sheriff, they might say, well, we had 5 inches, and we'll save that one. And when we save it, the icon changes. That way we know that we've contacted them in the past 2 hours, and we can go on through here and call other people. When we get done, we can go in here, and it'll show us the status of all the different kinds of events that we've had. So what I'll do here is we'll say that, this is one of several calls we made. We can send that as a public information statement. It'll say, Osage was the location, 5 inches was the amount. So that allows us to manage a lot of reports in real time. which we get in the field offices when there's a major storm. It also allows us to bring in observations from the database. For instance, we can look at 48-hour precipitation. It'll go and say to the database, I want all the observations with 48-hour precipitation in them, and it will begin updating the table for that. You'll see some of them down here as they come in. So that's data collection, and we have the ability to add a public report. We can look up a city, and then we can just enter a public report as well, and we'll say that this place had 3 inches. So now the final step before I run out of time, very briefly, I want to talk about impact management. We're literally working on it right now. Brian Shuknek at Central Illinois office is the primary developer of this. I've been working on some of the back-end stuff related to it, but this allows us to edit impacts or create new impacts. I will just create a new one here, and it allows us to put in things like the name, if there's a website, the lead time, how frequently you want to be alerted to an impact, what actions the WFO or local office take, what actions the partner takes, whether this is an impact that is, let's say, like every Saturday at 4 o'clock they have a band concert in the park. We can set it, to Saturday and give it a start and end time so that we only look at impacts when the event's actually occurring. We can give it thresholds. Starting out, we're going to have 4 different elements that we use as a test for OT&E sites. But we can say that, the threshold of this is temperature above 90 degrees. And we can add contacts to it. We can say that the contact for this is Bill Fritz. And then we can say that the area of concern here, we can draw it on the map right there and save our impact. And then we can show all of our different impacts in here. So the back end of this is then, of course, we're going to start comparing those impacts and their thresholds to both observations that are coming in and to NDFD data, which Tim Kopinski just got into our system this morning. So we're starting to look at how to alert that. And I'm almost at the end here. Ken, could we take a look at the our virtual lab site, Redmine?
Sure.
Okay.
Can you see that all right?
Yep, I can see it now. So this is our Redmine site, and if you go to Activity tab, it shows you the frequency with which we've been making commits. It's been very active lately. Not only the core team, but we also have some users over at the gateway that work with the wireless emergency alerts. So we try to document what we're doing pretty clearly in here. Those are all of the different commits to our repository. And if you take a look at some issues, you'll see that we've got a lot of user requests for things like adding a station, or if a certain error occurs. All of the requirements for impact catalog are in there. And this is just a really powerful tool. It allows us to track where we're at, something that we didn't have before. So we really appreciate that. If you could go to the wiki section, in here is where we keep links for things like our Java documentation. And if you go in there, it'll require you, I believe, to log in, or maybe not. Maybe it's only me that's required to log in. But
yeah. So this may be an issue at the moment. So
okay.
we'll have to go back to the other.
Okay. We've been able to log in there, and what happens is that it shows us all of our documentation for the framework, which is really nice. So, good work, team, on getting that. It's really helped. It's really helped kind of accelerate the Iris development. So, in 30 minutes, that's all I have. But I'll certainly take questions as people want to ask them.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt, for that very thorough and impressive presentation and demonstration. I think in the 5 years since we last saw Iris, we were introduced to it, there's been a tremendous amount of work done, and your team should be applauded for continuing to develop and engage on these areas which are so crucial to realizing some of the Weather Ready Nation vision. So, we're digging deep into our field innovation to push the agency forward, and your team's right at the forefront of that. So it's really great. Let's see. We got some questions. Please use the raise your hand feature, and Mike Cherma, who is assisting today, will unmute you so we can take your question. We have Brian Mretsky. Would you? You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Couple questions. The first question is, how is Iris being used for the WEA? I'm not. You explained that there was a connection. I wasn't sure what the connection was or how that was being used.
Okay. For WEA, what's happening is one of the aspects of the Iris framework is the product decoders that are running off of a feed from the NOAA port. And so when the products come in, they're put in the database in a highly normalized fashion. That means that there's a high relationship of the information is it has a lot of integrity. And so when that comes in, it's triggering a process that pushes that information over to FEMA in the format that they require it.
Okay, thank you. Follow up. In terms of the database, for example, what you have shown on the screen right now of some observations, basically you're pulling that in from another database, if I understand correctly. Is that's what's going on?
We're pulling it from a number of different sources. MADIS is a database as well, and some of the observations come from there. Other ones come from hydrologic products that the local offices and river forecast centers issue, and we also bring in METAR information from NOAA port.
Okay. I just was kind of putting it out there because it sometimes comes across as like this is the central database, and it's hard to, when communicating this to people, that there's not necessarily a central database. There's databases that are interfacing with other databases. Okay, one other quick question is this viewable from within IAWIPS?
Okay, I'm sorry, there was a bit of an echo there. I missed the.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know if that echo is me or not, but is this viewable with inside AWIPS?
No, it isn't. Not unless you open your port to it.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So Matt, isn't it correct though that for Iris, I mean, it's doing the decoding of the products themselves. It's not going out and copying data from other databases.
Correct. Yeah. For hazard products, it's decoding them as they come in off the satellite.
Okay.
Todd Foisey, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, here at the Caribou WFO, we've been using Iris a lot for the PNSs, the Mesonet monitor, but I was wondering if there was any regional, Eastern region policy or national policy that is going to basically, go towards Iris for all of the LSR and contact database management. I mean, we're currently using eClair, so I wonder is the ultimate plan to move totally towards Iris for all LSR and PNS needs?
I don't know that I'm qualified to answer that, but maybe if there's somebody at Eastern Region headquarters on this call that knows. If not, one of the things that is kind of one of the nice things about it is that when you get a PNS or you get an LSR out of Iris, it will be in the right format, and it looks very consistent across the National Weather Service offices issuing products that are essentially in the same format for information from their area. So I see some positives in that. I don't know that the questions that you're asking have risen to the level of people having answers yet. That would just be my observation.
Yeah, this is
okay.
Yeah, this is Steve Smith at MDL, so I'm not qualified either to answer that question, but I can say that we are moving to operationalize Iris as a national capability to support impacts catalog and the INWS and all the things that Iris supports currently in a robust way over in the new IDP web farm in College Park. So it will be a national capability. I think we'll leave it up to the regional and AQUIS authorities to determine what policies should be in place, with regard to your specific question. But I think if it is desired to make it the single way that we do LSRs, et cetera, then we'll have the technology in place to support that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really good interface. I'll shoot an email to some people at Eastern Region to see if they know. But yeah, I mean, it's tempting to go to it. I just don't want to, put a whole lot of work into the contact database and training the staff for it to, not be allowed, of course. So.
Sure, bear with us, I guess, is the.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, and yeah, we really love it. It's a great interface.
Thank you. Another question. Dave Novak, you're unmuted. Go ahead. Okay, hold on. Now.
On the.
Okay,
I'm on the
Dave, you weren't quite unmuted. Could you start from the top?
Yeah. Well, actually, Steve, you kind of answered my question. I was thinking, is this going into IDP? But it does prompt another question of, are there other competing database type efforts also going into IDP? I mean, I'll admit my ignorance here, but it seems Postgres databases and such are becoming more numerous, and it kind of goes to the former question of it would be nice to have kind of a standard approach to this. So it's more a comment, but I guess I'll just leave it there. I'm happy that it's going into IDP.
Yeah, and I agree with you as to the need to have a standard, and I'm not aware of another database, certainly not one as robust as Iris that is in existence right now.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Brian? Brian Moretzky, you have a follow-up?
Well, we had a follow-up. We're here in Eastern Region. We have got Rick Watson who wants to say something.
Yeah, basically, as far as I know, Eclairs is the program that we have dictated that the region be using, and Iris, there were a couple of years ago, there was some concern that Iris wasn't coming along, developing as well as it could, and so we just went off with Eclairs. Now, it may be time to take another look at this and see how things are now and compare it with Eclairs, but right now the official program to be using is Eclairs in Eastern. Okay?
Thank you.
One follow-up question.
Sure, go ahead.
I guess what is, as far as you know, NIDS and, let's say, the TOC using to distribute watches and warnings to through its servers? is it using to database that, and how is it distributing that information? So displaying that information on weather.gov or distributing it to partners?
Matt, do you have the answer to that question?
The only thing that I know about is I've heard that NIDS is using the Iris database as a somewhat of a back end to drive the WWA maps on the front page. I don't know about TOC at all, other than the fact that that's where the FEMA IPAWS WEA stuff is running at.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Who's next? Tom Filiaggi?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, Matt, you've heard me ask questions along these lines before, but I thought of a different way to say this one, and it has a different aspect to it. And this is in regards to the relationship between Iris and AWIPS. I understand that when Iris was first launched, AWIPS 1 existed, and it was pretty much impossible for any field developers to create AWIPS applications. With AWIPS 2, things are changing, and now that we have the VLab, the virtual lab, and the Redmine side, the ability to collaborate amongst disparate people is much easier. Have you put any thought, well, before I ask the question, there's also identified functional overlap between Iris and other projects. Have you thought much about how resources could be more directed or more applied to a fewer number of projects so that we don't have duplication of effort? Have you thought much about that?
In my thoughts about it, well, first of all, the first thing to say is that I personally would always picture the primary Iris framework and database to be centralized, where data can be shared. The second thing is that I would hope that at some point the firewalls on AWIPS would be set up to allow communication to the Iris framework at that centralized location. I think that would open up a plethora of new development abilities within AWIPS and possibly the other direction as well, with AWIPS 2 information possibly being made available to Iris directly. So I know with the new hazard services and other things out there, it certainly makes sense to me that there be that connection. So
a follow-up then. Are you concerned at all about platform proliferation, where a forecaster would have to look at one screen over there to look at Iris, and one screen over there to look at AWIPS, and one screen over there to look at something else? Are you a proponent of trying to consolidate to one, or do you think it's okay to keep them separate and have a number of those things?
There are the one thing that I always come back to with Iris and being on AWIPS, and you know, if somebody else asks the question, is it on AWIPS? Well, if I point my local gateway to it, yes, I can start a browser and I can fire up Iris right on AWIPS. But the issue that arises is that some of this information may need to be available outside of AWIPS as well. For instance, like when a WCM is sitting in his or her office, going through the contacts and managing them, even though all of the 4 AWIPS systems are currently being used. That's where the question has arisen about having it entirely inside of AWIPS. Personally, I would rather see there be a mix where it's available both from an external internal to the National Weather Service, but external to AWIPS web interface, and some other part of it on AWIPS, or the same thing on AWIPS. I think that's the right mix anyways.
Yeah, this is Steve Smith. I mean, I think as we look forward to the AWIPS recompete, it's probably a good bet that some of the solutions proposed, at least by competing vendors, will be looking to broaden the boundaries of what we currently call AWIPS, so that they would start to become closer to Iris and maybe incorporate things which are more in the way of centralized web services. So some of these questions may become moot at some point, and it's you know, one big happy family, I suppose. Matt, I've got this is Steve Smith. I got a question. I just am amazed at what you've been able to do in the Iris team over the years, and so I wonder what can you point to, and where I'm coming from is, so I'm used to, and I'm familiar with doing software development where you have X number of people on a team working basically full time to deliver some software, whether it's AWIX or something else, and you have 100% of their time to do that, and they're usually, or they can be physically co-located. But the Iris team is operated where you're definitely not physically co-located. You're working operations, so there are people who have to pull shifts, etc. And so that's a much more challenging environment to do software development than the traditional model. So what do you identify as some of the keys of your success in the Iris team's success in being able to do this fantastic development given those challenges?
I think really there's three aspects there. The first is that when we were most active, and then we kind of went through a period of having less activity here about 2 years ago, and now it's ramping back up. But when we were the most active back at the start, like let's say 2010, we had a pretty strong leadership that was going out to kind of sell the project and to get people excited and to get the ideas flowing from the customers, our customers, mostly at that point WFOs, back to us. The second aspect that was pretty important is that we have always followed a somewhat loose kind of an agile development process, but one of the key things about that is that we try to talk once a week, all the developers that can make it, so that we know what we're working on. We kind of keep focused on where we're going, and that helps a lot. The third thing is that we try to not take big chunks of it at once. We prefer kind of the rapid prototype. We have gone down a number of roads where we say, okay, this is the need that the customers are saying, let's take a crack at it, and we do something and put it out there, and they'll say, well, this isn't quite right, and can you change this and that? And we focus on that item until we get it the way they want it, and then we move on. So, I mean, from my perspective, those would be the three items that have kind of kept our team energized and moving forward.
And I presume implicit in your success is the support of the management in the various WFOs and regional headquarters to allow you and others to participate.
Yep, absolutely. In every case, what it's come down to is that we've been able to say to our supervisors, who are primarily MICs, look, this is what we're building, and this is how our office can use it. We're not just developing it for our office. We're not doing what was so-called stovepiping it so that we have 122 irises. We're trying to build something that we can all use, and by and large, they've been very supportive of that. So that's been a huge boost.
Great, thanks, Matt.
Any
other questions? Any questions in the room? Well, oh, we got one. Hang on. Keith, are you there? Oh. Okay, Keith, maybe you can send your question through the chat. We could try to pick it up there. Go ahead, Keith. Keith, you there? Okay, we're not getting Keith. All right. Well, thanks again, Matt, for bringing us up to date on the Iris project. There's a lot of excitement around this. and it's really good to be able to partner with you and the Iris team to move this forward to the IDP and to a robust operational capability. So we look forward to hearing more and seeing more great stuff. I want to remind everyone we have now a pretty well-booked schedule for the VLab Forum coming up in June. We've got an update on LAPS, which will be given by Zoltan Toth of Esrel GSD. In July, Brian Mata of the Weather Service Training Division is going to give a talk on VLab and training in the Weather Service. In August, we're going to get a talk by Dr. Chilia, I think of CPC, actually about week 3 and 4 forecast that CPC is producing. In September, all the way in September, we will have an update about what went on in the, or what's the latest from the hazardous weather test bed in Norman, Oklahoma. And finally, in November, we have booked Chris Lancy of the National Hurricane Center to talk about the Joint Hurricane Test Bed. So good things to look forward from as we move through the summer months. So thanks, everyone, and we'll send out a message when the recording of this is uploaded to the website. So see you next month.
Thanks, Steve.